So NASA's Artemis 2 mission, it's a huge deal, right? Humanity's big return to lunar orbit, a massive step forward. But there's a whole other narrative out there, a story that questions everything about it. Today, we're going to deconstruct that skeptical viewpoint, pulling from an interview with Flat Earth Dave to really get inside the arguments that are fueling all this doubt. Okay, let's dive right in. And this quote right here, this pretty much frames the entire argument we're about to explore. The claim isn't just that the mission is a fake, but that the whole official story is basically a deliberate test of our critical thinking, of our willingness to actually question what we're being told. So first up, the very foundation of the mission gets put under the microscope. The source we're looking at starts by just laying out a whole series of questions that, right from the get-go, are meant to cast doubt on whether this thing was even possible. So what are these initial red flags? Well, the source points to a few things. First, the logistics of an 800,000-mile round trip on what they call a single tank of gas seems impossible, right? Then there's the almost unbelievable luck of missing every single piece of space debris out there. It also brings up reports that the toilets weren't even working before launch, the huge challenge of the Van Allen radiation belts, a serious risk to astronauts, and even the timing, a launch on April Fool's Day. Kind of suspicious, they say. Okay, so the skepticism doesn't stop with the basic mission plan. It goes deeper, into the very physics of space travel. In this next part, we're going to see how the technical claims really come under fire. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, the re-entry. The official story is that the capsule hit the atmosphere at a blistering 25,000 miles per hour. So, the question the critics are asking is pretty simple. How on earth could nylon parachutes deploy and survive the insane heat and force at those speeds without just, burning to a crisp? And check out this comparison. On the left, you've got the SR-71 Blackbird, a masterpiece of aerodynamic design. Flies at Mach 3.2, super sleek, no weird parts sticking out. It doesn't even have paint because it would just burn right off. But then on the right, you have the Artemis rocket, which is supposed to be 10 times faster, and critics say it's covered in what look like PVC pipes and Lego-like right angles. The skepticism here is all about how that design could possibly hold up. And this leads to a pretty wild claim about the launch itself. The source says that unedited amateur video shows the rocket go up, stop, disappear, and then crash into the Bermuda Triangle. According to this view, everything we saw after that moment was just CGI. All right, so if the claim is that the launch was faked, then what about all the footage we saw from space? Well, this is where the analysis turns to the visual evidence that NASA put out, which skeptics argue is just full of inconsistencies and, production mistakes. And this really brings us to the core question about all the visual evidence, doesn't it? Is what we're seeing real, untouched footage from a mission to the moon, or is it something else entirely? Skeptics point to a bunch of photos of Earth as their proof of fabrication. They claim the first photo shows a lit dark side of the Earth. Then a second picture, supposedly taken 12 hours later, shows the exact same continent and cloud patterns. And these so-called long exposure photos, they show a brightly lit Earth, but weirdly, not a single city light. The argument then gets into a whole list of supposed digital mistakes. Things like motion capture tracking dots that appear and disappear on floating objects, items that seem to pass right through the astronauts' bodies, virtual objects that don't cast shadows, glitchy-looking fingers, and even allowing long hair, which they claim is a huge safety no-no. And this specific moment is held up as just a blatant production mistake. In one video, a jar of Nutella just floats into the frame, but critics are quick to point out that you can see all 4 astronauts somewhere else in the shot. So that leads to the question, who or what threw the Nutella? So beyond all the technical stuff, the skeptical argument also pulls in the people involved in the mission, basically suggesting they're all just actors playing roles in a giant performance. So the source makes a few claims about the people themselves. It points to a NASA director who apparently said the astronauts were straight from central casting. It claims one of the astronauts is actually a working actress, and then another elderly astronaut looked like he was under hypnosis during an interview. They even say that rivals like Russia and China are secretly in on it together. This quote from NASA astronaut Don Pettit is presented as a huge piece of evidence. The critics take this to mean he's openly admitting that we somehow lost the ability to go to the moon, which would make a mission like Artemis totally impossible with today's tech. And to push that idea of a scripted performance even further, the source points to a press conference where a female astronaut seemed to stumble and lose her train of thought. this isn't seen as just a simple mistake, but as an actor forgetting her lines. So, this is the crucial part. Why? If any of this were true, why would anyone orchestrate such a massive deception? Well, the source has a pretty comprehensive theory for the big motive. According to this viewpoint, the whole space program is just a cover-up for much deeper secrets. The alleged goals are to hide the existence of more land and resources out there, to stop free energy technologies from ever being developed, to hide our true spiritual nature, and, well, ultimately, to mask the true shape of the Earth. And this all builds up to what the source calls the mind prison. The theory is that the globe model itself is the foundation of a belief system, one designed to make us all feel small, insignificant, and cosmically alone, which, in turn, makes populations a lot easier to control. And to really highlight what they see as total mockery, the source points to this detail: the reported cost of the toilet on the Artemis mission, $23 million. And it's described as this shockingly low-tech thing that needs a bag, a drawstring, and a stick they actually call a poop pusher. It's presented as this absurd waste of money that's just meant to laugh at the public. But the source doesn't end by asking for blind belief. It ends with a call to action. The message is simple: question the official stories, be skeptical, and do your own research to verify these claims for yourself. So we've just walked through one very detailed and very skeptical narrative about the Artemis 2 mission. It's a really powerful example of the kind of counter stories that exist for almost every major event. And it leaves us with a much bigger question. In a world where any claim can be made and any evidence can be questioned, how do any of us figure out what's actually real?